Hi, everybody. Hopefully you're hearing me okay. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can just shoot a message on the YouTube channel. If not, you should be able to see a chat bar coming up. But if you have any questions during or after, just feel free to put them here. Or if you're having trouble hearing me, you should be able to raise your hand if you're on the Webinars on Air platform too. So yeah, just try to ping me if you're not hearing me okay, but otherwise, vamos, let's go. So I'm Jordan from NoTeekins and iBeacon Trends. My expertise is more with beacons and geofencing and a little bit of NFC too. And most of our webinars cover beacons, if you've been to one in the past. But this year, I really think that I really think that we need to be aware of all the other types of proximity technology out there, because more and more they're used in a coordinated manner. So this webinar, and again, like my expertise is really beacons and geofencing, but hopefully I can help field some of your questions about other technologies too. But I really just wanted to start off 2017 in a way that everyone that follows iBeacon Trends, that follows NoTeekins, is aware of the potential of other types of proximity technology. So that's what this webinar is for, just kind of a briefing on whether proximity tech is out there, go into a couple case studies, and yeah, I want to just cover like three of the staples of proximity that have been around for years, three kind of up-and-coming technologies that you should be aware of, and then delve a little bit deeper into three pieces of technology that I think have a lot more potential to grow, especially this year. So that's the gist of it, and there will be some time for questions at the end. And if you ping me on the chat bar here, I'll try to answer during, but I may not get to them until the end. Okay, so let's go. And again, if you're having trouble hearing me, you should be able to see like a button to ping me, or you should be able to chat with me directly right here. And if you are on the YouTube channel, let me just pull up the link. If you are on the YouTube channel, it'll be a little bit more live, so to speak. So if you're on the Google Hangouts, you should be able to click here to get to the YouTube channel. And with that, it'll be a little bit less of a delay. With the Hangouts on Air, there's a little bit of a delay. But if you're okay with that, no worries. Whatever works for you. And this slide share will be available in your inbox tomorrow, as well as the full video. Okay, so I think that's all the housekeeping. So let's go. Yeah, so like I said, there are a lot of proximity options out there. Hi, Chai. I see one message already. But these 9 here, these 9 here that I'm going to be talking about are ones that you should definitely be watching. And I will kind of like just kind of give a more of a briefing than like a full in-depth review of all of them. But at the end, there'll be an opportunity where you can sign up for a free consultation. We can go more in depth with one, or we can kind of see what your situation is and just kind of help guide you to the right tech, or a couple different types of proximity tech, that whatever works for your situation. But let's get into each one. So NFC, near field communication. Most of you are probably aware of this because of mobile payments. So if you want to pay with your mobile phone, you're most likely going to be using NFC, although now beacons are used a bit more often. But there are some good examples of some marketing campaigns with near field communication. The difficulty is, at least compared to some other types of proximity tech, there's a very limited range. 10 centimeters or less. You have to have your phone pretty much right on the NFC tag, the NFC chip. And some phones don't actually have NFC chips anymore. The new iPhones do, actually. I think iPhone 5 didn't have NFC chips. But the new iPhones do, and that's what Apple Pay uses, as well as Bluetooth sometimes. But yes, the difficulty here is like it has to be from the user side. It has to be very active. They have to move their phone right up to whatever you have tagged. So if you have a poster, for example, with an advertisement that says, "Hey, download our app," with an NFC tag at the bottom, and they're super cheap, by the way, a couple euros. But if you have a poster with that NFC tag at the bottom, the user has to take out their phone and place it right up to it. It's not something that can be kind of done in the background, which you can do with some other types of programming technology. But they can be pretty effective to some extent. And yeah, you should be testing them out. There's some pretty cool projects. There was a project, I think, from Budweiser in Brazil, where they had 2 NFC tags, and when you clicked drinks, like you would exchange contact information. So that was a cool way they were used. I've seen them in magazines before too, because again, they're pretty cheap. They're getting even cheaper. And you can like have different ads that will pop up on someone's phone just when their phone is close to it, when someone moves their phone close to it. So yeah, it's worth knowing about. We're trying to think through like what type of like physical locations that might be good for this, what maybe posters or some other type of printed material is usually best for this, because you have to give users direct instructions to use it. So that's NFC. And yes, about Bluetooth and beacons, I'm seeing your question, Juan. I will dig into that a little bit later. If you can just hold on for right now. But that's NFC. If there's any questions on NFC, feel free to ask them now, or we can wait until the end too. But yeah, that's NFC. Be aware of it. Try to be creative with it, especially with printed advertisements. Geofencing. And Notikins, for those of you who aren't aware, we do have geofencing capacity. It's an SDK, a software development kit that allows apps to interact with users with geofencing and beacons. So that's where our expertise lies, mostly with geofencing and beacons. But with the geofencing, sorry, Hassan, if you're not hearing me okay, ping me again. Sorry, let me just make sure our new friend Ehsan is hearing me okay here. Sometimes there's a little bit of technical difficulties with jumping on it. Sometimes the YouTube link is better. But as I was saying about Notikins, we do have the ability to let you interact with users, but only with native apps. Geofence is a very powerful technology that I think a lot of marketers forget about, and I'd love to see more of this year. Unlike NFC, where the user has to be very active in getting your whatever marketing message you have, geofencing can work in the background of phones. So once you have a way to interact with users with geofencing, they only work with native apps. We tried to develop something with non-native apps, but just that there's technical limitations from Android that are tough to get around, and iOS that are almost impossible to get around. The problem is it doesn't really work in the background. But with geofencing, what you can do is you can message users based on their GPS position. And phones in general track users' locations almost no matter what. So they don't even really have to have GPS turned on. They have to have location permissions turned on. This is the go-to. So yeah, Ehsan, you can see the presentation on YouTube too. It might work better for you. This is live streaming to YouTube and with Hangouts on air. Sorry about the difficulty. So yes, geofencing, it's really easy to set up. You don't need to have anything physical. You just need to have a native app, and it works fine. You set up a zone. Like a circle, you can do squares or other figures too, but it's easier to set up a circular zone. And within that zone, you can message native app users. Obviously, like having location services turned on and tracking people by location, it does drain a significant amount of battery, a lot more than having Bluetooth turned on. But there are some ways to limit that battery drain. And Notikins has a way to limit that battery drain as well. So yeah, I think geofencing is really worth testing out if you have access to a native app. You set up a GPS zone, and within that zone, you message users some type of advertising. So for example, like if you're a supermarket and you want to message users right outside of your supermarket, you can send them, hey, come into the supermarket, we have an offer on rice, or we have an offer on flowers today, or something. If you have a physical store, perfect. If you have a museum, you can message people outside of your museum. If you have a stadium, they're used oftentimes outside of stadiums to upgrade seats, like right outside the stadium. Hey, you're about to enter, like here's a discount on upgraded seats. So yeah, the advantage is you can use it if you have a native app. The advantage is it's really easy to set up. You just need to have the right technology, no hardware required. And it's cool because you can really target people based on time, based on location, and really target the right users at the right time in the right space. So do be aware of geofencing. It's really powerful. It's worth playing around with. And yeah, if you're not a supermarket, if you're a restaurant, you can do it. You can even like target right outside of your competitors too, and say, come over to my store, come over to my restaurant. It's a little sketchy to do that, but it's possible. So you can be creative with geofencing, easy to set up a marketing campaign for. Wi-Fi marketing. I'm moving on to the next one. It's been a staple of proximity for years. Basically, you can set up Wi-Fi at your physical location, and anyone who turns on Wi-Fi, you can track. You can't really interact with them, but if you're just looking for data to track users, I mean, it's again a little bit sketchy. We prefer to have users opt into things, but what you can do is you can see how many people come in. There are platforms out there you can see like your user flow, see how many people go to this part of your store, see how many people in a different part of your store. Yeah, so you can do that for data. You can also set up a network, like a Wi-Fi network, and have like a Wi-Fi landing page. So as soon as people connect, you have a Wi-Fi landing page with a Wi-Fi message. So if you do have a physical location, having Wi-Fi available can not only let you do some marketing, like with a landing page, but you can have pretty accurate data because a lot of people will have Wi-Fi turned on. Again, like it's better to have people opt in to wait until like they say, yes, I accept your terms and conditions to use the Wi-Fi, but you can do it without it as long as they have Wi-Fi on. So that's Wi-Fi. These are like stable tech. I don't see like them growing too much, although again, I would love to see more people using geofencing. But good to be aware of, good to think about. And depending on your situation, maybe you can be using all three. Yeah, but those are three that you should be aware of, been around for years. Lots of good marketing strategies that are working with all three. So the up-and-comers, these ones, and I'm speaking to marketers. This presentation is more geared towards marketers, though if you're not a marketer, this technology might be interesting too. Might even be more interesting. But for marketers, these three, it's not as developed yet, like what you can do with them. But it's still interesting to be aware of, and hopefully we'll see some growth and some cool case studies with marketing, especially this year. So for LiFi, this, if you've seen, there's a famous TED Talk. I forget whose TED Talk it was. There's a famous TED Talk from I think 2011 that talks about communicating with mobile phones via LED lights. Really, really cool project. So at that point, it was more than a concept. It had an MVP already, but the last couple of years, the technology has really developed. But as you can imagine, the difficulty with LiFi is that you have to be connected to light. So, similar to NFC versus geofencing or Wi-Fi, you have to, the user has to be doing something active with the phone. They're not going to get a notification in their pocket, which would happen with geofencing. They have to have their phone out, and the phone has to be able to be seen by the light. So for marketing, this may not be incredibly helpful. If you imagine people in your store are not constantly checking their phone, or people in your movie theater aren't constantly checking their phone, or people in your stadium aren't checking their phone under a light. So you really have to think through like what people at your physical location are doing in order to use LiFi. But if you imagine people will be using their phones almost always, it's worth testing out. There's a bit more of a setup fee than you'll find with geofencing, which again has no hardware. You do need the right LED lights to do it, but it's really cool. I mean, if you do a LiFi project, we don't work with this, but if you do one, you can generate a lot of press with it because there aren't actually that many case studies. GE started manufacturing the lights and started selling them to some hospitals and I think a couple grocery stores. But really, like the technology just isn't as developed yet, and I really think it's because there aren't as many use cases, and you're not going to be as sure to reach people because they're not constantly using their phone, and by the time the light reaches them, maybe they've moved on to the next light. But it does move very fast. People have talked about it as maybe a replacement to Wi-Fi communication. At 224 gigabits per second, which is very fast. So it's a very fast technology, and it's recent. Like I said, the TED Talk is from 2011, which is really when the first time there was an MVP product. So we'll see. I would keep an eye on it. Every now and then, just search for news on LiFi and see if you see any big installations. But it's not something that, at this point, unless you're into very innovative marketing and cutting edge marketing, you're looking for something to generate some press, it's not worth diving into. There's other technologies that are more secure. But be aware of it. It's very cool, very interesting, and I'd love to see some more case studies this year in it. Any questions about the technical specifications? You can just ping me on this, or we can talk about it at the end. So next technology, LoRa, and this one is even less developed for marketers. There was one really interesting case study working with beacons in Amsterdam this year. I think it was Glimworm was the company. And in Amsterdam, there's a thing called the Beacon Mile, and I'll dive into beacons. Hopefully a lot of you are aware of beacons because of other webinars we've done. But if you're not, I'll dive more into Bluetooth beacons in a few minutes. But they have this Beacon Mile, as it's called, and these Bluetooth sensors are all along this one strip, 1.6 kilometers. And they've got LoRa devices too. And so these LoRa devices are more for smart cities and kind of connecting sensors and gathering data than for marketing. But if you are working with other sensors, I think they can work with LiFi too. So if you're working with other proximity sensors, RFID, I think they work with as well. It can be great to connect them, and they have a super long range, like a couple of kilometers. And so you just need a couple to set up in a city. So if you have a lot of other sensors set up in a city or several big stores, you can connect those sensors with LoRa. But again, there's not much with marketing at the moment. It's just to be aware of it. And if you are using other sensors, this might be a good specification to look into to connect them over large areas. And who knows, maybe you want to integrate your sensors with other sensors in the city to help cities improve their data collection. So that's LoRa. Again, like LiFi, just be aware of it. Keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens. Geomagnetic is another interesting technology. I've only seen one company working on it, Indoor Atlas. But basically, it uses the Earth's magnetic field to see where you are indoors. So it's more used for indoor mapping than anything else. But you can definitely see with that indoor mapping some potential for interacting with users based on where they are indoors too, and for collecting data. But most often they're used for wayfinding. And basically what you do is you map out your store or your stadium, your museum, your whatever physical building you have access to. You integrate a map to that. And then based on the Earth's kind of like geomagnetic fields and the geomagnetic sensors that are already integrated in a lot of smartphones, it can tell you where you are and where to go. So again, very cool. You don't need to have the physical devices because the technology works just with smartphones. Not really developed for marketing yet, but we'll see what 2017 brings. So those are the 3 up-and-comers. Keep an eye on them, but you probably don't need to integrate them into your marketing strategy this year. Who knows? Maybe there'll be something next year, but yeah, watch them. Okay, so then the 3 technologies that I see that have the most potential for growth this year are beacons, and let me get to the next slide too so you can just see it for a second. Eddystone URLs, which are another beacon format, and RFID. So I want to dive a little more in depth with all 3 of these, and hopefully you guys have some good ideas for how to integrate them in any innovative marketer's strategy for this year. So for beacons, just as an overview for those of you who don't know, they're devices that emit a Bluetooth identifier. You can see in this picture, there's 2 of them from Estimote. A lot of different manufacturers out there. Estimote solid, but we worked with Contact, Access Systems. A lot of good manufacturers out there. We can recommend based on location, based on project, whatever. But basically, there's these small devices that emit a Bluetooth signal. And they enable smartphones to perform actions when they're close by. Some of the newer beacons, they can go for hundreds of meters. Oftentimes, they go for, 20 to 30 meters. In general, there's a mobile application that enables the technology. So like with geofencing, phones will not track, or like apps will not track you via Bluetooth and geofencing when an app is in the background. So in general, you need to use a native app. It will track you in the foreground. So if you have like an app open and you're near a beacon that has an advertisement attached to it, if you have the app open, the advertisement will pop up. If it's closed, it will not unless the app is native. So that's why Notikins, our SDK, works just with native apps because it won't work in the background. But basically, you have the mobile application. You turn on Bluetooth. You enable location services from the user side. And from the marketer side, you configure campaigns. With Notikins, we have an online dashboard that's similar to any other type of advertising platform. You put the campaigns together, put the dates, put the location of the beacons, and it will send users an advertisement, basically. You can do a lot more than just an advertisement. You can have an app pulled up. You can send a URL to them. You can just track data. You can see which MVP clients are in your store. There's a lot you can do with the beacon interactions. For marketers, mainly used to send out notifications to very specific people. Because you don't want to be, if you have an app, you don't want to be notifying everyone. But if someone's inside your store nearby, something you have an ad for that particular day, beacons are the way to ping just those users. If they're outside their store, it's easier to do with geofencing, because then you don't have to worry about setting up the hardware. But if they're inside some physical location, you pretty much have to use beacons. While using geofencing, you can kind of get people if they're nearby a window, but safer to use beacons. And beacons are more accurate a little bit than geofencing, than GPS. So that's the gist. Hopefully that explains beacons to a large extent. We do have a lot more webinars on beacons, so I can dive more in depth about the technology. That's the main piece about beacons. In 2016, so the technology was launched by Apple in 2013. So it's a couple years old, but still pretty new. 2016 saw better fleet management. So if you have a large store, a stadium, a big museum, in the beginning it was difficult to manage those beacons, see which ones were still active, see which ones were performing well, just kind of like get an update about how they're doing. So 2016, there was some good hardware that was launched to help manage beacons. And so we saw a lot larger implementations. Before, a lot of people were more testing out beacons to see if they were a good technology and in a small scale capacity. 2016 saw a lot larger launches. It also saw an update from Google. So Google's Eddystone, which I'll dive into in the next slide, that's on update. There were extended battery life from the manufacturing side, like a lot of beacons before, they lasted maybe a year. Now some of them last 5 or 6 years as solar-powered beacons. A lot of great hardware upgrades. Bluetooth 5 was also launched in 2016. Bluetooth 4, 500-meter range. Bluetooth 5 has, I talked to one of the developers from Bluetooth, like one of the project managers. He said that it could reach a couple kilometers. The issue with beacons, though, is that it's up to the manufacturers how far they want the Bluetooth to reach. And the batteries will last a lot less time if beacons have a much wider range. But we could see much longer ranges in the future, even a kilometer or two, just similar to LoRa. So yeah, that's one thing that I want to keep an eye on, is how Bluetooth 5 might impact the broadcast range of beacons. I really think there'll be another update to Google's Eddystone this year. And again, I'll dive into that in a second. So Google has been pushing the technology for the past year and a half. A lot of interesting things they're doing. I would like to see Apple kind of push back. They had a patent they launched in the middle of last year, but nothing's come of it yet. So we'll see what they do. They also had a patent about printers working with beacons too. Nothing that interesting for marketers, but maybe Apple will come back with something. Facebook was pushing beacons last year, but they kind of they were pushing free beacons actually for retailers, but they kind of dropped off the map. So I don't know if we'll see anything with them. Twitter had invested in beacons, I think actually in late 2015 in a beacon company. Haven't heard much about that either, but yeah, we're kind of waiting to see if there'll be another big player that'll make a push for beacons this year, besides Google. And as far as verticals, beacons are involved in so many verticals. If you look at iBeacon Trends, which is the blog that I mentioned that we run, there's articles. Let's see, the last couple articles cover beacons for transportation system. So this is, when someone walks into a train, they'll automatically pay, and the train will know that they're there. This is about a company acquired. This is about an art museum using beacons for guided tours. Vending machines are now accepting payments with Bluetooth, and I think payments via Bluetooth will be a big thing this year. Used for communications at an airport, another museum, another vending machine. These are just in the past couple of weeks on a Welsh Dragon. So the tourism sector, Uber launched beacons for making pickups easier. You can put a beacon on your Uber dashboard. Waze actually had a cool beacon project where they can help find out where you are inside tunnels where GPS isn't working. So yeah, beacons will continue to be pushed in a number of different sectors for wayfinding, and for data collection, and for marketing. I really think smart cities are the vertical to watch, especially with LoRa integrations. And yeah, we'll see what like I would love to see cities develop some type of beacon network just for tracking which beacons are in cities, which beacons are active, and who owns the beacons. It's like a kind of a beacon repository, basically. CETA is doing this for airports, but I'd love to see cities start doing it too. Similar to what I said was going on in Amsterdam with their beacon mile. I'd love to see one city, maybe even Amsterdam, launch some type of beacon network where you can kind of track all the beacons and see what others are doing, and yeah, just see what beacons are available in your city. So we'll see. That's just an idea that I would love to see happen. Not sure if it will happen, but almost there. So that's beacons, and this is where expertise is. So if you do have any questions for beacons, like I'm your guy, no worries. We can help you out with any beacons questions you have. So that's beacons. Eddystone URLs, and here's where I'll explain a little bit about Eddystone. Eddystone URLs are one type of beacon format where we believe will really pick up in 2017. So Google launched Eddystone, I think, in the middle of 2015. And they had an update in maybe March of last year. So they launched with 3 different types of protocols. One similar to Apple's iBeacon, one kind of for fleet management, and one this Eddystone URLs. And then this last year they launched another one that's more secure, kind of for security purposes. Not really interesting for marketers. The fleet management might be. UIDs is very similar to iBeacon, so don't worry about that if you already know about iBeacon and how beacons work, like I just went through in the last slide. So Eddystone URLs are the ones that are worth watching for marketers. And who knows, maybe they'll launch some other type of packet too this year. But how they work is instead of sending an identifier that lets apps like interact with users based on that identifier, they send a URL directly. So the information they transmit is a URL. It has to be like a secure URL, like HTTPS. It has to be shorter too, but they have a link shortener. And basically, once you set up the beacon with this URL, which some manufacturers make super easy, the beacon automatically transmits the URL to anyone who's nearby. So you don't need an app involved, is the main benefit. And you can just go around. Like I went around with a conference with a beacon. People didn't need to have an app. They just saw that there was a message, and they could interact with it. It looks a little bit different than the typical iBeacon message. We're putting together an infographic. If anyone's interested, I can send it to them sometime next week so you can actually see it without having to test it for yourself. But basically, with an iBeacon message from Apple, you'll get a notification with the exact message. With Eddystone URL, it's different. So you don't need to have an app to get the notification, but it's not going to be an active notification. So it's not going to ping your phone. It's not going to pop up in-app. On Android, because most, if not all, Android phones, I think all Android phones have Chrome, so it works with Chrome. You'll see a notification. It won't ping you, but you'll see a notification in your notification messages that you have a nearby notification. You click on that notification, and then you see the website. On iOS, there's a couple more steps you have to take. You have to have Chrome downloaded, and then you have to have Chrome turned on for your notifications, and then you have to have the physical web turned on, and then you'll see it on your phone. Maybe I can pull out the camera so you guys can see it. I don't know if you're seeing me right now. I think you're able to see me now. So this is what it looks like on iOS. It's not like a typical notification. So you have to enable this on your device, and this is what it'll end up seeing. So you can see we've got an Eddystone beacon nearby emitting the Notikins URL, and you just click on here, and it'll take you to the URL, and that's in the notifications. But it's a couple-step process, and so you really have to know about Eddystone in order to use it. Whereas you don't even have to be aware of what beacons are, how they work. As long as your Bluetooth is turned on, you'll get the message. So I would say for Eddystone, if you are, it's cool. I would say for Eddystone, if you are interested in trying something more innovative that's easy to set up, it's worth testing out. We haven't integrated it into our dashboard yet just because the demand isn't quite there for it yet, and we haven't figured out a really good way to help marketers with it. But there are some good manufacturers that can recommend that you can just start testing for yourself. And we'd love you to let us know like your feedback and how it's working and how maybe we could help you improve the campaigns. So in order to do that, you just need to buy your Eddystone beacon and set it up to emit a URL and place it in some location. In Spain, actually, we can place them in public places. We mean to just put it somewhere. And it's illegal to put it in public places, although someone could easily find and steal it. But if you have a store, you place it in your store and see who clicks on the link. You can track it with Google AdWords. So yeah, I'd say it's worth testing just to see who clicks on it. And it's really easy to set up. You don't need the app. You just need the hardware. But just from testing it at conferences, you're probably not going to get a huge response. But it's worth seeing, especially if you have a lot of Android users. It's a lot easier for them to see. The issue with Android is they don't get notified by it. They don't get a ping. So if they leave the beacon range before looking at their phone, before looking at the notifications, they're not going to see the link that you're sending them. But again, worth testing. I think it's cool, easy to set up. Go for it. Why not? ¿Por qué no? So that's Eddystone. And just to give you one case study before diving into RFID quickly and then getting into questions, you can ask more about this. They're being used on buses in London. I think 500 buses, actually, maybe more. So it's a great space to use it because people are there for a while. It's not like they're walking around a store. They're kind of on a bus for 20 minutes, nothing to do. They'll probably be checking their notifications. So they have these beacons on these 500 buses. And it's a campaign by Smartwater, actually. And they know when someone's leaving the bus. And they'll send them a message with a link about like a landing page that tells them cool things to do in the area, like from celebrities and from locals. So it's not selling Smartwater directly. It's a content marketing campaign, and they just set it up, and it seems like it's doing well. So that's one example. Maybe another type of transportation service like taxis, or on a metro or something that might be worthwhile to try to if you have access to those locations. So yeah, you just put them there. You can change the landing page whenever, which is great. So if you have one advertisement one day and want to change it the next day, you just change what's on the page. That's one cool example of content marketing from Smartwater with Eddystone URLs. If you have any other ideas, happy to do a consultation and we can help you set something up free of charge because we're interested to see what the market wants to do and can do. So that's Eddystone URLs. Really exciting and easy compared to other programming technologies. Next up and last up, RFID. So there's been some campaigns. I've seen some campaigns since I think 2012 with RFID. We saw a little bit more in 2016, but I really think that this is the year that there'll be even more RFID campaigns because shops are using RFID more and more to track clothing. So basically how RFID works is you need to have an RFID reader and RFID tags. I mean, the tags can be, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 cents, depending on the tag. Really cheap, really small devices. They don't need to work with a battery because the RFID reader charges them when it's nearby. So there's been a lot of use cases in the past couple of years. But for supply chain management, especially for retailers, last year they really became more popular. So basically, like with one RFID reader or a couple RFID readers set up in a store, you can see what items are in store, and your staff knows what items are in store. So 2 days, for example, I was in Zara, and I'm pretty sure they were using RFID for this. But I asked someone if these pants were available in a certain size. They couldn't tell me the location because you can't know exactly the location. But she could tell me just by looking on her smartphone that there was that size in store. I just had to look and find it. So it's cool. In store, like it helps employees see what's available, see what's not available. for people like looking at what needs to be ordered. You can see in store like what's available, what's not available. You can see what's in your warehouses. So a lot of retailers now are using RFID for their whole supply chain process, from the warehouse to shipping to in store with their employees, because the tags are so cheap. The readers though are expensive, and the readers are not integrated, at least in any phones that I'm aware of. Maybe there's some phones that yes, because they're so expensive. They're getting cheaper. A couple years ago they were a couple €1,000. Now I think I saw some for a couple hundred. But yeah, they're still expensive. So marketing directly to consumers is difficult. But because so many different types of clothes stores or store items have these RFID tags, you can play around with that. But there's been some, Panasonic has a solution. I forget the store. Maybe I have it not here. But there's a store that was using them. So like if you have a shirt on and you're in a dressing room, like, and you're looking in the mirror has an RFID reader on it, and it knows what shirt you have on, and it can suggest other clothes to wear with them. So that's one really cool example. There was something like you could have like RFID readers in some coffee mugs. I mean, again, they're pretty expensive, but it's something cool to show off. And that, like, when you put it up to like a Keurig or something, the Keurig knows that this coffee cup belongs to this type of coffee, and automatically fill that coffee cup with whatever type of coffee. So that's something, if you have like a event or whatever, you can use to show off how cool you are. So that's something that kind of would be more kind of content marketing with a cool piece of technology. You can also have readers like with posters or even with screens. And so when someone's nearby, you can, like if they have an item with them, you can like have, hey, like you have this beer glass with you, get the beer too. So that could be something cool if you've got some screens or a poster, something like that. But yeah, if you have a physical location and you don't mind the investment in the readers, and your products are already tagged with RFID tags, you can play around with screens or with mirrors or with some other type of device in store that can directly market to consumers. We'll see what happens this year with the technology. But I really think that because just more and more products have the RFID tags, we'll see more and more solutions with marketing in store thanks to RFID. But vamos a ver. It's a technology we're personally excited about, and we'd love to find a way to integrate with our dashboard too. So we're happy to talk through ideas you have and see if we can help you, or see what we can do together, see if there's any potential partnerships there. So that's RFID. Again, another exciting technology that I really think will take off. And I wanted to leave a good amount of, I know this is just a lot of information, and that's why this webinar is an hour and not half an hour like our normal webinars. So that's a lot to take in. Which is why I want to leave a good amount of time for questions, just to be available. I'll stay available live, and then I'll be available via chat. And if you do have any questions, I'm here, and we can schedule a one-on-one consultation. Let me just ping that geofencing.com. And this will come in all of your emails too, if you signed up with Hangouts on Air. Teekins.free consultation. If not, you can find our contact information on teekins.com pretty easily. And the website to sign up for a consultation is teekins.com/free consultation. But yeah, I want to be available now and in the future if you have any questions about all these kind of like crazy different proximity texts, and see which ones are worth trying, which ones are definitely worth integrating, and which ones you just don't even need to worry about. But the conclusion is that 2017 should be a pretty exciting year, especially for beacons, Eddystone beacons, and Google iBeacon and Google's UUID Eddystone beacons. Continue to they'll continue to be pushed. We'll see more and more implementations in a lot of different verticals, in particular with smart cities. And I think there'll be some cool use cases for the Google Eddystone URL beacons too. And RFID is the other one to watch and see what other type of solutions are out there. Or if you're interested in building a solution for yourself, happy to talk through how marketers might use that as well. The stables, just to be aware of, NFC, geofencing, I'd love to see more of. And Wi-Fi, be aware of those technologies. You're probably already using one, if not all three of them. So you should be aware and just try to think through innovative ways you can integrate them in your marketing plan this year. And then 3, to probably just keep up with, or at least now you're aware of, LiFi, the LoRa, and Geomagnetic. You know, if you see any news about them with marketing, you know, read it. Beyond that, unless you're into really innovative marketing campaigns and really want to create your own marketing solution, probably not worth keeping an eye on. But it's good to be aware of them. Just good to be aware of what your options are. So beyond that, there's not much more I can say other than if you do have any particular case studies that you want to talk through or ideas you want to talk through, we're available. I can't really give too specific advice without knowing more about what you're interested in. But hopefully now you're aware of everything. You're excited about all the different possibilities. And yeah, we're definitely open to working with you, to helping see how proximity marketing can be a part of your 2017. And yeah, the years go by quick. So now is the time to start the brainstorming at a minimum. So yeah, that's all. Thanks for being here. I'm available now. I'll stay on the line live, so you can see me for another minute or two. If I'm not seeing any questions, I'll just be available via chat, and you can sign up for the free consultation. We can follow up later. Thanks again. Muchas gracias. Merci beaucoup. Yeah. Ya está. All right, I'm here. I can ping back on with the camera if there's any questions. Ciao for now.